Hello everyone, it's Tech Talk time. Basically, we took a week off because it was kind of holiday week last week. Ended up going to the island and having a bit of fun and kind of relaxing. So now we're back in action, and War Thunder also seems to be back in action, doing a bunch of events over the time and a bunch of different stuff. Specifically, one for Bastille Day this weekend, which will be quite good. But yeah, so it was nice to have a break, and I think as usual, breaks are very important in terms of trying to reset and re-gauge, and that's basically what I was able to do. Just kind of sit down, enjoy life, and go and see some new areas. Ended up going around Nanaimo, and if you haven't been around Nanaimo, it's a pretty small city. I think there's like 90,000 people. It's got a beautiful harbor, and also it's pretty close to the mainland. They created a fast ferry that's there. So what that basically means is you are able to actually get over there super quickly. So it was nice. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I feel like going forward, it's going to be a really nice place to be in. So looking forward to it. Maybe going again and maybe even picking up a place over there. So yeah, if you don't know what the Tech Talk is, it's pretty simple. It's a weekly podcast that we do, and the whole point of the whole point of it is pretty simple, right? Um, it's just kind of a way that we can go through the comments of the previous Tech Talk and go through the general points and have a bit of chat about them. So if you have anything that you want to see in the Tech Talk, leave it in the comments of this one, and then we can kind of go from there. We're going to be doing dailies today, and also page of history and doing the French thing as well, so shouldn't be too hard to do. But let's get started. We have Away With You, Valbega. Hey Tech, I've been busy little B this past month, so now that I can finally relax a bit, I start catching up with the Tech Talks and the updates. I return next week with a continuation to my realism saga, so be ready to have a chuckle. Until then, have a good one. Yeah, this month, at least for me, is usually pretty relaxed, but for a lot of other people, it's super busy. Maybe because it's like the middle of summer for a lot, so they have a lot to do. But usually for me, this is like my chill time where I don't really do too much. Like, we had the mini holiday and stuff, but usually I'm just kind of sat here like playing other things and going through. Like recently I've been playing like Forza Horizon 4 while doing my workouts. That's been really fun actually. Also playing Their Billions, which is an insanely long campaign, but I'm right near the end of it now. I think I'm on the last mission probably, so we'll see what goes on. And then also Cataclysmo is another one that we're going to get into. And finishing Battle Block Theatre with Freeman. It's just been an insanely busy time to try and get stuff done. And then also the Euros has been going on. So hopefully the Euros goes well. England are in the final. And Spain really should win it. They are. The Spain is like, if you have a look at Spain compared to like every other team, Spain is like a level above everyone else. It's just kind of nuts. So we'll have to see what goes on. But yeah, looking forward to the realism stuff. Always nice to have a look at and see what is kind of going on. Then we have Karam-chan with the timestamps. Always kind for Karam-chan to do those things. Thank you so much to everybody who contributes to that stuff. Hey, Holy Rune, nice to see you. Hopefully you are doing all right. And then we have Red Ned. You needing to piss every 10 minutes sounds like me after a few beers. Once you open the floodgates, there's no stopping. The longer you hold taking the piss, the better. There's some... Right, so I have the same issue with beer. But also, what ends up happening with me and beer is I end up, like... drinking way too much in way short of a time. So since I'm like a big dude, right? I need to drink a lot to like feel drunk is probably the best way of putting it. So in order to feel like tipsy or kind of up there, I end up like sculling like 3 drinks in like half an hour. And then after that, I usually do like a pint every like hour or so just to keep it up. It's pretty expensive, but there's not really there's not really a lot else I can do to kind of like get a buzz if that's what I'm looking for, right? And it just kind of sucks because after that time, right? Like after the oh my god, I'm dead. After the time, what ends up happening is I just end up, what's the word? I just end up just pissing like constantly. Like it's just nuts. So yeah, it just, obviously, you know, the whole like diuretic thing and things like that, but it's just a real pain, it's a real pain to get it done. Like, it just annoys the hell out of me, at the end of the day. So usually, like maybe it might be worth like drinking like smaller drinks, like more like cocktails or drinking like whiskey or something like that, so I don't have to like, you know, use the bathroom all the time. But also at the same time, there is something very relieving about, you know, going hands-free and just waggling all over the place. Maybe we'll just continue that and just have a bit of fun. Why not? Then we have King James with good old Mr. Bean. I mean, yeah, realistically, it shouldn't matter where along the guns are, since they should all range independently, but they seem to be coded to all have pretty much the same ranging, so the variance of the guns, the distance of the guns on your ship leads to dispersion that can be countered by being broadside. Hey, that's neat. I was in a video, though, and happy late birthday. Well, thank you. Yeah, the dispersion thing is really odd when it comes to the guns. But yeah, the just you got to remember dispersion doesn't just happen on the horizontal; it also happens on the vertical. So you have a situation where, you know, you have vertical dispersion and also horizontal, which is just a pain to deal with. So don't forget about that. Hey Zero, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Nice to see you too, Carbon. England won the first test. They did, yeah. It was quite nice. But yeah, it would be nice if they reduce that stuff. As I said, RNG factors in games, especially when it comes to dispersion, is so annoying. It's not like in Naval, it's annoying, but as I said, like Expo and Cruise and stuff makes it a bit easier. But with tanks, it's with tanks, it can just be a killer. Like where you try and shoot for a specific place and then it just doesn't go there and it goes somewhere else. It's an absolute metric killer. So yeah, I always struggle with that one. But yeah, it be how it is and it do how it do. Alright, let's see the next one. Hey Senpai, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hey Search Gaming, when do you think the ground battles will get their BRs adjusted? Well, usually we get one in like August, right? And they've already talked about on the roadmap that they're going to be bringing in a bunch of the stuff in the summer, right? So like a lot of the roadmap stuff. So my guess is we'll probably get some kind of mini update end of July or in August, which adds all of those things in, but then also adds in like the BR changes and the economy changes, because we haven't had any real economy changes really for a long time too, and they've added a ton of different vehicles in. Like, so that's also another thing that'll probably be coming out, you know, very, very soon. Is that new Dutch Air Force Roundel or the Czech one? It's the Czechoslovakian one on the MiG-23. It's an actual camo for the vehicle in the game, which is quite nice. You should play Elden Ring? Maybe one day. That's, you know, something that's kind of up in the air. I played Demon Souls way back in the day and I completed it. So what I want to do is I kind of want to go and play Dark Souls and then Dark Souls 2 and then Dark Souls 3 and then Elden Ring, because I understand they're not fully connected like in terms of like what they are. But for me, I want to see like the progression of them all. And as a person who's played like similar games in the past, you know, ones which are based around timing and leveling up and everything, it would be nice to see the kind of difference and progression through the games. So at some point in my life, I don't know when it is, I'll probably be 40 or 50 at the time, but what we'll do is we'll sit down and we'll go through them all, and we'll spend like, you know, 3 to 6 months like setting it up. More recently, I've been very much into like city builders and obviously just like kind of grinding out General War Thunder stuff and relaxing. And it's been quite good, so like I've enjoyed it. The MiG-23 BN isn't great. It's a base bomber basically. That's all it is. Right now, it's gonna really benefit from the BR changes though, so that'll be really nice. Which will be good. Good afternoon, Andrew. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing alright today. Nice to see you too, Laggy SD. Hey Tech, how you doing? Any reason the stream thumbnail is the Lithuanian flag? Because they added Lithuanian voice lines in last update, and I really like the picture of the guy with the microphone. You plan on getting drunk as fuck this weekend? Well, good luck, CEO of DAZN. The zone? Is it the zone time? What does the zone have on it nowadays? It has like a bunch of NFL stuff, right? I used to have a subscription for it when the NFL stuff was on. But since then I haven't really been watching too much stuff. The major issue I had with it was even though you paid the subscription, there was still a bunch of stuff that you had to pay additionally to get access to. So, for example, a lot of boxing ballots and things like that, and it just was kind of crap, if I'm honest. But hopefully it improves. So let's see what goes on. So we have J-Bo. I think having those game modes running on an event cycle would be pretty cool. I could definitely see that opening the way for Gaijin to test new modes, ideas. Historical matchmakers, ground DC, PvPvE, World War I, interwar, ground only, in a consistent manner, while also seeking feedback from the people most likely to frequent that section of the game. Yeah, I mean, the fact is, you know, over the years they've got a bunch of feedback on those things anyway, right? But yeah, they could definitely get more, especially since the player base is always changing. The major thing about something like that, though, is it does take resources, right? And you got to justify the resources. So there has to be enough people playing them in order to justify it from there. So I think they should at least give it a go and see what it's at. But I don't expect there to be a lot from it, really. Like, I mean, we already have quite a few game modes in the game which don't have a lot of players in them, like in terms of how many resources they take. So adding more in may be a bit rough. But until you try it, you never know, right? So we'll have to see what goes on. Hey, Baltic Thunder, nice to see you. So the major thing is that, right? At the end of the day. And the other problem is, and this is right, so let's say you have a small player base for something, right? Let's say it's consistent, right? But it isn't growing and it isn't shrinking. Eventually, that's going to shrink. It's not going to grow because of the way that these things work. People drop off and people will eventually have to find new things. So what you need to do is you need to find a way of expanding it to a point where the people leaving are smaller than the people who are bringing in. So if you have a small set of players who play something, and they end up, you know, basically giving feedback on how to improve the game mode in form of what they like, then what that's going to do is it's not going to increase the amount of players playing it. What it's going to do is it's actually going to isolate that game mode into like the area where it already is. So what sometimes you need to do in order to improve these things is to actually get outside perspectives to kind of say the things that people aren't going to usually say because of the fact that it doesn't line up with what they think. Because you're not actually trying to accommodate the people who are already playing something. You are trying to accommodate people to get new people in to play the same thing, right? Does that make sense? So it isn't always just about listening to the people who are playing something. It's also trying to work out what is stopping people from playing it, or what is the reason why people don't touch it. And sometimes that reason you can't fix. Sometimes it is just a generic, like, I don't like it, or, you know, I'm not a fan of this. And, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. But sometimes it's like, well, maybe the rewards are not great. Maybe the offers are not there. Maybe it's a time thing. Maybe it's up at the wrong time. You know, so all of these things could be modified. So I actually find it much more interesting to actually take the feedback from people who are kind of on the fence instead of the people who are going to play it no matter what. Like when I've seen this recently, which is quite funny. I've seen a lot of people say stuff like, well, you know, I'm not enjoying War Thunder because of this, and this, but I'm never going to stop playing it. And it's like, well, why would Gaijin ever listen to you? Because they've got you. They've hooked you in, right? That's the whole point. So it's always weird, like, reading those types of those statements, you know? Tell that to the Latam post. It's growing, I swearsy. Very true, yeah. Did you enjoy the aviation post that they did, Senpai? It was fantastic. Yeah, and all of the other times that they've put those things up too. But yeah, it's the same thing at the end of the day. I do agree that historical matchmaking, as people seem to want it, would negatively impact the game overall. I wouldn't just say it would negatively impact it. I think it would actually kill the game, just straight out, right? And through an event cycle system, Gaijin would be allowed to experiment without disrupting the experiences of the majority who enjoy War Thunder for what it is and benefit more from quality of life changes like your grind suggestions. Yeah, hopefully. If historical ground-only matches statistically overtake the core game modes over a long enough time period, then Gaijin can consider reorganizing the modes/menus to benefit them. Otherwise, they can stay tucked away from the other minor game modes for the players who want them to enjoy. That's true, once again, all of this is completely fine, but it's another resource thing, right? It's a balance of resources. So as long as it doesn't take too many resources to do, sure. But if it does, and it isn't giving the return that it needs, then it's not going to work. And that's the key right there, right? In order to add new game modes to the game, what you're trying to do is you're trying to expand on ideas that you've had before, but also to bring more people in. The question you have to ask yourself is, are the people who have left, who want stuff like historical matchmaking, are they going to come back? And then also on top of that, what you also need is you need a new set of players to come in to also benefit that decision. Now, for me, I don't think that exists, right? I don't think there is this hub of players out there who is hugely into that stuff, right? But I could also be wrong, since I haven't really done any thought into this. I've just looked at general numbers about like how many people play X, or how many people are interested in this, or how many people used to play these events in the past, right? Or when it comes to Enlisted, how Enlisted was straight up set up like that. It was set up in a way that it was fully historically matchmaked, and it didn't work, and they had to fundamentally change the whole system because it doesn't work. But that's, once again, a separate game and all of that stuff, right? So if the numbers are there, sure, why not? Have a bit of fun. But I personally just don't think the numbers are there. Hey, Sarge Moon, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Calcum Bacon. Hopefully everything's good. Nice to see you too, Diabolly. Hopefully everything's alright. Yeah, and it also cuts out just a massive part of the nations, which kind of sucks. We need a World War type mode that uses historically accurate tank matchings just as an event mode. It's not persistent. Well, we already had that and it didn't work, so... World War mode season 1 and 2, which was historical, like, this didn't work. They had to keep doing more balance fixes to try and make it balanced. And even then, it didn't balance it out. Season 3 was just a mess. So it's just how it is, you know? You never played World War? Well, as a person who did, it was a mess. But it was a mess for several factors. We need a World War mode that's not World War mode, yeah. What happened to the consistent War Thunder events? Well, there never was consistent War Thunder events, that's the thing. Technically, like, over the years, we've had a bunch of events over the time, but I wouldn't say any have been consistent. It's more like, you know, they used to do more mini events back in the day, like Flights of the Swallows or Floats. If you remember Floats, Floats was fun. But yeah, they even like put in a Floats event during one of the summer events once, which was kind of fun. Do you know how they make maps? We'd love to see Badlands from Alberta. I don't know fully how they make maps, no. But I know there's the War Thunder CDK, so people can experiment and have a bit of fun with that. And work out how it works. There's been some really cool things that people have made, actually, over the years. Some cool mechanics and stuff, too, which have been nice. Alright, here we go. They took away vehicles from events, but now what's the main way to get vehicles? The Battle Pass? They didn't take vehicles away from events. You have, like, the mission score stuff, right? They just changed the events because people weren't playing the old events because of historical matchmaking. So we have Insane Robert. Hello, Tech. Happy birthday. Thank you. It was a good birthday. I enjoyed it. We actually had a birthday dinner just last week, and it was we're out with the missus's family, and we had some sous vide steaks finished off on the barbecue, and it was beautiful. Tasted fantastic. It was lovely. Had a really good time with it, actually. But what happens to consistent vehicle events? Well, if you go to January 2024, they changed the event cycle. So now instead you have individual events for individual vehicles. So, for example, you had the Object 292, you had the PLZ 83-130, you had, you know, the Jaguar that was there too, and the Act 3. So instead of having these like mega events where you have like 3 or 4 vehicles to get, instead you have individual events. So you can just grind those out. Happy Friday, P the Great. Nice to see you. We did make it through this week. It was a bit crazy. After so many years of War Thunder, what would be the one vehicle you'd like to see being added to the game? And bonus question, what is your opinion on Central and Eastern European beer? I don't really know beers by nationality, if I'm honest. So I can't really give you a thought on that. I would like to try some. The main thing I like about the beer in Central and Eastern Europe is it's super cheap. Like it's insanely cheap in those areas of the world. But over here, it's expensive because it's seen as international beer. So yeah. It's always funny to me how Heineken is always crazy expensive over here, and it tastes like dish soap. Like I've never understood people liking Heineken, but just like Britain and just like many other places, I'm sure there's a ton of really cool drinks that people have, and you know, maybe one day we'll start doing some like taste testings or something. We actually did something really cool the last days or so. We made some focaccia, the bread. It turns out it's really easy to make. Like you mix flour, water, olive oil, and salt, and then you put it in a bowl. Put some olive oil on it so it doesn't dry off. Put like cling film over it. Leave it in the fridge for like a day. Take it out. Plop it on the baking tray with some more olive oil, and then let it rise for like 2 to 4 hours, 425 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 minutes in the oven. Take some salt, take some more olive oil, and just like poke it into the bread, and hey presto, focaccia. Turns out like bread can be very easy to make, so that's something worth trying. Super nice. There doesn't seem to be any small vehicle events running right now. No, there's none running right now because they said they were going to have a break. The next vehicle event will probably be pretty soon, and I think it's a naval one. Hey, Anti-Griefer, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Boddingtons? Yeah. Good old Boddingtons. But yeah, I'll try... You know what? I'll see... There's a lot of brewers over here, and a lot of them make some pretty good stuff. But I think what I'll do is maybe we'll start doing, like, tier lists of beers. Because alcohol is one of the things that's pretty cheap over here. So maybe I can, like, go through it and give some thoughts. But then again, I don't really want to become a drunkard, so we'll see. Who knows? Anything's possible. And we have Frank Bradley. Hey, Tech. With the Summer Olympics quickly approaching, what are some sports that you would like to see added to the Olympics? Here are mine, and what are your thoughts on them? Summer Olympics. Pickleball, co-ed golf, and fishing. I would like fishing, but also at the same time, I feel like fishing's too RNG, right? But yeah, I'd be fine with it. There's a lot of like competition around that. I have no idea what pickleball is. I've got to be honest. I don't know what that is. Co-ed golfing. I'm guessing that's like co-op golfing. I just like golfing in general to be in the Olympics. I don't really understand why it isn't. But yeah, I think in general, like I'd be fine with those. Handball. I'd like to see handball in the Olympics. I think that sport is super fun. Hacky sack is also one which should definitely be in the Olympics. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the crazy Americans at hacky sack, where they're able to, like, straight up just, like, get it in the hole, like, every time. Like, holy Jesus, it's crazy. So, yeah, I would go for hacky sack. I would like more shooting events, definitely. Just because I think they're kind of fun to do, so I'd be down for that. The Winter Olympics, American football and ice fishing. Why would American football be in the Winter Olympics? That'd be kind of interesting. You know what? I'm fine with American sports as long as professional athletes aren't allowed to play. So that's the big thing, right? Like the problem with a lot of American sports is pretty much only America plays them. So for example, American football, they did a competition recently which was like an international football thing, and America obviously was just better than everyone else even with just amateurs playing. So like I'd be fine with it if professional players weren't allowed to play. Um so that's something. But yeah, I like the idea of golf being in there. Golf's a pretty chill sport to watch. Some kind of racing sports would be nice, which aren't just track and field. So, you know how you obviously have stuff such as like the Paralympic stuff with the wheelchairs. What if instead of just like the wheelchairs, they bring back a variant of chariot racing? But it isn't like biking. Instead, it's like scooters. So you get like a tiny scooter, and then you have to basically power through it with your legs, to be and go around like the standard track. I think that would be pretty fun. It'd be fun to have an old Riga city map, very close quarters, and also some open air for the Bastion Park. Yeah, there's a lot of cool places in the world that could work as maps. Usually, historical maps have been a bit rough, you know. Ice fishing would be kind of interesting to see too, but once again, the RNG of it, right? Like I just don't know enough about like fishing in general. I feel like the other one, if you want to go along the fishing route, hunting would be quite fun as well. Maybe you have like a week's period and see how much you can hunt, and then different animals and different sizes get different points. That could be fun, you know. Team USA football in Winter Olympics would just be the NCAA champs for the year prior, give the US the gold medal before it even starts. That's the thing, right? Like you'd have to. It's like the hockey, right? So if the NHL players are allowed to play, then it's very obvious who's going to win. If they're not allowed to play, it's a bit more of an even playing field. And then also, like, one of the things they do in cricket, for example, and they do this in Canadian hockey too a lot of the time, is with like the junior teams, a lot of people are not allowed to play more than once. So I think it's like for Indian cricket, right? Which cricket would be a really fun sport for the Olympics, since a lot of nations are good at it. They could even do like a smaller version of it, like thingy cricket. I can't remember what it's called. But there's like a special type of cricket that they could do. But the interesting thing about India is whenever they have like I think it's under 19 World Cup or under 20 World Cup, you are only allowed to play like once in it as an Indian because there's just so many different Indians who are, you know, way ahead of the curve and so many they want actually involved, which is really interesting to think about. So for me, like maybe something like that could work. If not, it would kind of suck, but we'll have to see what goes on. That would at least be something to think about and do. So yeah, I'd be fine with something like that. The fishing one intrigues me. I just don't know how competitive it would be. The hundreds T20. Well, I was thinking like something like you make the bats tiny, and then you have like one wicket to aim at, and then also you have an encaged room. Like I don't. Did you ever play like indoors cricket where you were in like a gymnasium, and then what you ended up doing is you would if the ball hit the walls and if you caught it, right, then if you caught it with one hand then the person was out, or if you caught a ball, if it bounced once with one hand then they were also out. I just like rules like that, so not like the standard cricket because it just takes too long and it's too obvious, but actually just create like a smaller form of it. I think that would be kind of fun. So we have Captain 7567. So, Tech, I have a fantastic idea for some more historical elements of the game to make it much more realistic so I can feel exactly like a real tanker. Taking the idea of crew training as tanker school, not specifically in the vehicle, what do you think of year-based crew skills? For example, if you're playing an early war German tank versus early Shermans and T-34, T-34's congratulations, you have a Tiger Ace crew and your skills are top notch. However, if you play late war tanks or get matched up with Pershings and early Cold War tanks, you have the crew of tankers who got a whole 1 day of training before being shipped out. Thoughts? Sounds good to me. Why not? That works. That works extremely well, in my opinion. I think that would be fantastic. And thank you, Beamagol, for sometimes it didn't change again, which is very annoying. I would like it to change going forward. For some reason, it just decided it wasn't going to work again. So no, obviously, but it is quite funny to have a bit of a giggle about the idea of artificially nerfing somebody based on the vehicle type they're using and what time they were. I feel like you know what would be hilarious when it comes to like something like that? Trying to work out which doctrine or which set of training is superior to others. So imagine if they brought in a system like that, but like let's say modern day tank crews, they decided that like I don't know, Italian crews had like the best training, so therefore they had the best crew skills. Can you imagine the hilarity that would go on in the War Thunder community if they did that? Like if they just picked one nation that had, you know, better training than others, there'd just be a whole brouhaha consistently from people being like, well, the training that I did was top notch, and I can't believe that you're saying that theirs was better. I did a field exercise with them and they didn't even know how to speak English. Couldn't believe it, you know, stuff like that, which would be quite fun. Is that not what the reload skill has become? Well, the reload skill is just a balancing thing, right? Like it's not really built on anything. It's not really built on anything that's like historical, basically. You'd hate that, but everyone can make it equal. Well, yeah, it's something that shouldn't happen, but it's one of those things that would be really funny if it did. You know what I mean? Like, because it basically, at the end of the day, it still just comes down to character judgments, and character judgments in a video game don't work really well. But no, most reload skills nowadays are pretty much like standardized across the board, with some outliers here and there. But now most of them are basically about the idea of, you know, trying to keep stuff balanced. That's why like pretty much all 105 have like 8-7 reloads. You know, some of them have higher than others, like the good old, obviously the Abrams having a 5-second reload, which is just still kind of nuts. A lot of vehicles having 7-7 reloads, or 6-0 or 5-0 reloads. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Your reload skill isn't bad, because everyone has the same ability to level it up. Yeah, but not everybody has the same ability to actually get as fast of a crew thing as others, right? Like, that's the big one. So, like, at the end of the day, if you think about something like, there's Bastille Day done. If you think about something like, well, as I said, the Abrams. The reason why the Abrams has the faster reload is because people were doing bad in it, right? And also, autoloaders don't get affected by the crew skills, so it wouldn't work very well at the end of the day. Not too fun. So then we have King James again. I think there's an argument to be made for just having everyone in Naval have the same spawn. But larger ships are glacial anyways, and it's kind of just ridiculous having them spawn so far away that by the time they get anywhere, the match is over. From faster boats, they'll spawn closer to the point. There's an argument for it, but it's still wrong. I don't like the idea that cruisers and battleships and battlecruisers having the same spawns as destroyers, because the destroyers will just get clapped. Like, it's one of the bigger issues. The other problem is if everybody just has the same spawn, then it's very easy to torpedo that spawn and just becomes more of a problem, right? And that just sucks. So even if there is an argument for it in terms of, you know, people having as much impact as possible, if you end up giving everybody the same spawn, just like in air, right? Like if everybody spawns in the air at the same altitude, you're just going to see the same vehicles over and over again because people just want to play the best stuff. I see, but then that's a vehicle balancing thing? Yeah, it is. Reload is a vehicle balancing thing. And always has been. Like, it's never really going to change, you know? So we have J Bo. Unrelated to my comments on the event cycle idea, much less of a serious consideration, what are your thoughts on Gaijin implementing an oxygen system? Aircraft at high altitude would require oxygen for crew to function properly. Canisters can be added as a damage module that would provide the crew with oxygen. A gradual impact to crew member efficiency similar to injuries could occur until unconsciousness occurs. After unconsciousness, crew members will have a set amount of time to recover or suffocate. The timers for efficiency and suffocation will become shorter as altitude increases. Perhaps crew skills can be expanded. For instance, where was it? For instance, making those stamina and tolerance skills for gunners more impactful. I don't think adding extra things that just do damage over time to you, which you can't really control, is not a great idea. Also, the trend when it comes to especially air is not to go to high altitude, it's actually to stay at low altitude for most people. So I don't think it would really drastically affect anything. And you'd need a lot of work in order to implement it, because you basically have to add it to every X-ray model in the correct place. You have to let it influence specific crew members. You technically would need to model it for each individual person, right? But yeah, they could do it. It's just what benefit would it give? And I think the benefit would be pretty much zero. The reason why they're bringing in the updated ground mechanics, or the updated X-ray modules, I should say, in ground, is because they're trying to work out a system of being able to balance the mechanics that they've added into the game. And one of the ways they're thinking about it is the idea that you can destroy a module to stop the mechanic happening. Since oxygen isn't a mechanic in the game right now, you'd have to first of all add it in and then add the X-ray to it. And all you're going to do is negatively affect people. So for me, I don't see it as a positive, really. I just see it as kind of a negative, because all it does is bring annoyance. The quest for realism is an interesting one, and it does bring us to some very interesting places. This isn't one of them. This would just be annoying, I think. Let's see. In truth, I can see this negatively affecting low-tier bomber spawns, since I don't know if they all have oxygen, and can't recall how high they actually fly in RB. They don't fly high enough, basically. Or it may create a new breed of space climbers. Perhaps it will go unnoticed outside of mid-tier RB and sim players. I don't think even them, they would matter. Also, I don't know what the development cost of adding modules would be. But I imagine the in-game effects will be more or less be a reskin of G-load mechanics, but tied to altitude. All in all, a neat bit of realism that can be added down the road. Yeah, but the question you have to ask yourself is why add it, right? And for me, at least personally, if the only answer to that question is because it's more realistic, that's not good enough. That never will be good enough, and is actually a negative, because there are a lot of things that are realistic in real life which are inherently negative to experience in a video game, right? Just put it like this, right? Imagine you're like flying around and you're doing your standard thing and everything's going fine, and you get clipped by somebody. You win the engagement, right? And you're at altitude because you're in, I don't know, the I-225 or something like that. Or you're in whatever, like, high altitude fighter. And you get clipped, but you're still combat effective, but your oxygen system gets hit somehow, right? So, in this case, you have to go back to base. You have no other option. You can't do anything else. Because if you stay where you are, your pilot will eventually just knock out, or you'll have to go down to low altitude and you'll have to face the music, right? So you give up your advantage that you have, and that's because you've already been clipped. Now, most of the time, you will just go back to base anyway because you've been clipped, and vehicles which have been damaged really don't feel very well. But also, sometimes it is good to keep that advantage to go forward with. With a game where most people go low anyway, right now, I don't think we need incentives to go even lower, right? Good evening, J. Chris. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing all right today. Hopefully everything's good. But yeah, so I'd need a more compelling reason instead of just, you know, that. Alright, let's see. Do. So we have Charlie Harris. Since I started playing the American T-32 tanks, I've always wondered why these tanks are ranked 5, since both of the tanks were designed and built in 1945 and 46. So I've always wondered, should they really be classified as rank 5 heavy tanks? I just think that the American T-32 doesn't really fit in rank 5, since, well, it's a heavy tank facing other tanks that can fire heat at you, which kind of nullifies your armor. And I think also the Russian heavy tanks like the IS-3 and the IS-4M could really benefit from being reduced in battle rating and be moved up in rank into rank 4. Maybe this is a bit of a stretch. Maybe the T-10M can be moved back into rank 5 and its battle rating reduced because it's in the same situation as the Mouse. It faces things that are far more mobile and have much more advanced ammunition. I mean, hell, they moved the Tiger 2-105 and the Yak Tiger up to rank 4. So why can't they do this for, say, the T-32, the IS-3, and the IS-4M? I mean, come on, the IS-4 is 77, as well as the T-32A1. And at this battle rating, it's a death sentence, at least in my experience. So there's two factors here. Rank has nothing to do with matchmaking. Rank is just a research thing. The only reason rank exists is to limit your research through a tech tree. So therefore, it takes you longer to go through a tech tree, right? Doing well, J. Chris. Can't be mad. Just doing the tech talk. So, yeah, don't worry about rank when discussing balance of vehicles. Rank is just about research. And, you know, they have talked about the idea that ranks have kind of like limits to them in, you know, what BRs are supposed to be where. But these kind of transcend game modes and also at the same time aren't always, you know, aren't always the same. So different nations have different reasons for different things being at different ranks. So don't worry about that. BR-wise, if we're talking about matchmaking, so battle ratings, I'm guessing the idea you're pushing forward is the idea of reducing these things in BR. A lot of these vehicles used to be lower BR. Pretty much. The T-32 was, the IS-3 was, the IS-4 was, the T-10M was. All of these things used to be low BR, and they dominated. They were very good because even though, you know, you think about the fact that you face heat in these things, I mean, well, the M103 exists, by the way, at similar BRs. But you feel like, you know, you face shells which are, you know, can pen you and can do damage and all of that stuff. But imagine if you are facing those things and you can't damage them. And that is the key question. It isn't about whether at 7-7 you deal with stuff that you can't, you know, you can't deflect or stop. It is more about the fact that if you get down BR'd into a 6-7, is there anything that can stop you? And that is the problem with the heavy tank dilemma. It's the fact that you have all of these vehicles that are here. They're all very powerful, and they're all very good. And if they get their BRs wrong, what ends up happening is they take over the game, right? So all of these vehicles went up in BR because of this fact. Specifically the T-32 when they remodeled it and also changed shells to volumetric. It became incredibly powerful because there was no way of stopping it. Same with the reason why the T-2065 went up in BR. Same reason why the Tiger 2P recently went up in BR. There aren't many heavy tanks that go down in BR if you've noticed. And that's basically because of the fact that if they get into down tiers or if they become meta vehicles, they are incredibly strong. And that's what they're afraid of. Now, the T-32 is one of those that does actually have quite a few factors that limit it. For example, you have stuff such as its reload being quite long and not having crazy penetration. Things like the IS-3 and the IS-4, they have long reloads too, but also if they go up against targets that they can just pen straight through, why does it, you know, it just ends up being incredibly aggressive, right? So there's really no point in putting them down in BR. Also, because of BR decompression, that puts them up. So when you're thinking of these vehicles, don't think about them at 7.7. Think about them at 6.7, right? If they get moved down to 7.3, think about how any 6.3s deal with them. There's like one vehicle in the game that could deal with them at 6.3, and therefore they would dominate and be very, very strong. So that's when you're thinking and looking at heavy tanks, think about their extremities. Don't think about their specific BR, because if they become meta, they start fighting at the extremities, and that's no good. Which is why a lot of them have been changed over the years. So we have Tishio. TEC birthday and calendar day are within spitting distance of each other. Coincidence? Yeah, it's crazy. It has been some years since you started making YouTube content. What are some changes you've noticed in yourself since then? I've put on a lot more muscle than I had previously. Well, I basically went from a bunch of muscle to a bunch of fat to a bunch of muscle again. So I suppose I haven't changed at all. The main thing is just being more comfortable with chatting. You know, even in public, just chatting to people. Usually I would really much keep to myself. Because, you know, I always have like a ton of ideas just pinging around in my head. But nowadays, you know, even if I'm on like a bus, or if, you know, we're out for a meal with mates or something like that, I try and be talkative and chatting with people, because I think their experiences are very important. And that's something I've learned through the internet stuff. The simple fact is, no matter who you meet, even if it is through the internet or through real life, usually they have something interesting to say, or at least have something that can benefit you as a human, right? So I've become a lot more open to chatting with people in real life. At the same time, I would say I have become a bit more cynical when it comes to just dealing with general stuff. I've become a lot more short, I think is probably the way to put it. So that it might also just be an age thing. Like with the fact that over the years I've just got way more to a point where it's like, okay, do I really want to deal with this? No. Okay, let's move on to the next thing and do something else. You know what I mean? Like I've become a lot more precious with my time, where before I was a lot more open with it, because I still think it's very important to be open with these things, but there are straight up just people you meet who are wastes of time. and I know that's sad to say, but like, we are here for a very short period. I'm not going to waste it discussing ridiculous things. So that's kind of the thing. I've also become way more open to a lot more topics. Back in the day, I was super focused on very specific things. And that's just because that was what my work was. That was what uni was. You know, that was what was going on. And that's just kind of how it goes. Sometimes, you know, you need to kind of sit down. You need to think about all of the stuff that you got to do and got to work out. And that's what I did over like the period of time. So for me, I think I've become a lot more open to discussing different things and just have like a larger knowledge base, which is super useful. The other one is, I think I've got a lot better at time management, which seems weird because I was pretty decent at it before. But I think, before I was trading efficiency for time. So nowadays, when it comes to creating a lot of stuff, like the efficiency level is really high and the time is also really high. So before I would spend like, let's say 15 hours a day working. Nowadays I spend 16 hours a day, or sometimes 14 or 16 hours a day working, but I get way more stuff done nowadays than I did previously, even in the same amount of time. And that's just because of understanding technology better. That's just because of understanding priorities and focusing on. And yeah, that to me is been quite important to kind of like work out how to do. And I've definitely like grown with that. The other thing is just, as I said, meeting a ton of really cool people and becoming a better person because of that, I think. Like, just being able to talk to people every day who are generally just kind, nice people, and also just meeting so many over the years with so many different perspectives and just enjoying listening to them, really. That's a huge thing, and something that I really can't express very well in words. But I feel incredibly privileged with the fact that I'm able on a daily basis to basically just sit down if I want to and just talk to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 people about different things and ask them about stuff and learn so many different things. Like my mates always talk about, like, in real life, I always have like a bunch of just random information that, you know, we talk about, and they've started like making fun of me for it because I always have some like weird tidbits of information about just random things you would never think about. And it's basically because of doing all of this stuff. And I feel really happy that no matter, you know, what we go through, there's always some interest in it, there's always some cool stuff in it, and it's just really fun. Like recently the Euros, right? And what's all been going on with that, and also obviously all the political stuff in America and Canada, you know, and then also some of the law changes around me right now, and War Thunder and other games and all of these things. There's so many different things going on, and it's really hard to keep track of. But I know if I want to ever, you know, chat to some people about it, I can do. And that's not a privilege that not many people have. A lot of people have to go out and search for it. Where for me, I can just ask. And that's hugely beneficial for getting information and also just discussing stuff. And I think that's really cool. I've changed a lot. Like, when you just think about it, I mean, technically it's been over a decade. When I think about when I was around 20 and now around 30, I feel very happy with where my life is at. And I feel like I did very good in terms of, you know, everything going well during my 20s. And I can't wait to see what happens when I'm 40. I hope more of the same, and I hope doing the same stuff and maybe enjoying different parts of life. Hey, Anthony, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Nice to see you too, Mix. Hopefully everything's all right. I noticed the BR decompression, feel a bit sad. They rose the 29G from 30.0. Didn't get any benefit in this update. Relatively not competitive in the real top tier, yet they still let the 29G be in there. Yeah, it kind of sucks, right? Stuff like that is never really fun to go around with. But hopefully you can make it work, man. Hopefully it can get done. Hey, Midnight, nice to see you. Have you noticed the bug with thermals for gunner sights staying on after switching to third-person view? Caught me off guard yesterday. Yeah, that was an old bug, and it seems like it's back again. It sucks because it's kind of game breaking. Hopefully they fix it up, you know. Do you know maybe when they'll show new battle pass vehicles? My guess would be next week. Yeah, probably next week, because yeah, I mean it makes sense, right? Because the battle pass doesn't finish this week; it finishes the week after. So that'll be cool. So we have Jerry. Do you lose FPS on desert and winter, or is that just me? On max graphics, I get around 100 FPS, but when I get a map like Frozen Pass or Sinai, it drops like 30 or 20. Also, for BRs 10.7 or above, I think we should get a different nuke bomber. Something with flares would be nice. Or maybe just chaff. And also, I know it's a bit late, but it's sad that Gaijin forgot about Canada Day. Yeah, I suppose Japanese whatever day was more important. I don't know what. They did a bunch of days that week, but they just didn't do Canada Day, which sucked. Hey, Dismantle, nice to see you, man. How have you been? But yeah, that did kind of suck that they just missed it out. Hopefully next year they could not miss it out. What was it? Let's see. Yeah, they did a plane, ship, and decal for Japanese self-defense day. They also did Swedish Air Force Day, but they didn't do Canada Day. Sad. Like, very sad, right? So, yeah, I think, maybe, I mean, if they want to add more nuke bombers, they can. I'd be fine if they actually did unique aircraft, which had the nukes. I think that would be fun. Then also, also, the FPS thing, yes. I have had it in the past. I haven't recently had it, though, but that's just because I changed setups, so I wouldn't really be seeing any of that stuff going on. So, I think overall, I would hope that they optimize stuff like that. They have, in the past, done a few optimization changes, but yeah, there's a definite issue with certain maps not being as optimized as others, just because there's more going on. So hopefully they can do something about it. Because it's not very fun, right? Just saw your British Light Vehicles video. Still waiting on the CV90 to come to the British stream. Do you think it will dismantle? I'd be very surprised if it did. Like, there are plenty of vehicles they'll add in the future, but I don't think that'll be one of them. I think they want to keep the CV90 Swedish, right? Because I don't think Britain uses a CV90, do they? I know they, like, tested a bunch and trialed them. They also did Argentina Day 3 days ago. Yeah, they've done a lot of days, you know? Like, it's been kind of nuts. But they usually do, right? Like, they did Bastille Day today, which is fun. I like Bastille Day. I'm a fan. It's one of those which obviously has quite a lot going for it, which is nice. Always enjoyed Bastille Day when we were in Châtelain. My father used to have a house in Châtelain, which is in the northwest of France. And in Bastille Day, the whole town used to come out and they used to do the marches. Even, you know, the gendarmerie used to come out, the army used to come out, the mayor used to come out. It was really fun to watch. I really enjoyed living there, actually. If I could ever actually find work in a place like that, I would take it within an instant. I really enjoy a lot of French culture. And also at the same time, just like, you know, the work ethic's quite nice. The only thing that's annoying about France is, you know, if you ever want to get specific stuff done, banking was always annoying. Like, trying to get banking done in France was like just hell because it was always closed. BA Systems produces and trialed them. If Sweden can get an Apache, I don't think it's too much of a stretch. Yeah, that's fair. And Japan gets a bunch of fake vehicles, so we might as well just add fake vehicles, right? That's the thing with that mentality. But it can work. Why not? Go crazy. You're looking forward to the footy, by the way, Dismantle? You're going to be watching it? You're going to get some in? Have a bit of fun in the footy, brav. Should be alright. Alright, so then we have Cuddles the Bear. If some people so badly want to have historic SM, why don't we take the team numbers historically accurate as well? As in 1 Tiger and a Panther versus 10 Shermans, or 2 S2s and a bunch of T-34s. Well, you know what's funny? They tried that in World of Tanks. This was a long time ago, like, it was at least like 4 or 5 years ago, but they tried to do it. Like, they had a game mode which was set up in a way where you had these specific numbers of vehicles that were available at those historical battles. They also, at the same time, had historical ammunition loads as well. So basically, you were running a lot of, like, you know, standard HE and things like that. Hey, Teddy, nice to see you. And you'd have a very limited amount of the round which actually could do damage. Guess what happened? Everybody just tried to play the best stuff, and the game mode failed because they couldn't find matches. Weird, right? Weird that this stuff isn't just a War Thunder thing, and it transcends a bunch of stuff. I made a suggestion this morning. How long do you think it'll take for mod to look at it and approve it so that it actually appears on the forums? I don't know. One of them, somebody sent me another suggestion that was rejected, but I didn't really look at the suggestion earlier. But yeah, I don't know how long it would take for stuff like that to go on. Let's see. There we go. I think it would just depend on who's up and when. But yeah, the historical thing is funny to me. Always will be. There's nothing that will not make it funny to me, is probably the best way of putting it. Can you request all Battle Pass vehicles for test drives as a Gaijin partner? Probably, I don't know. I've ground out all the Battle Passes, so I've never requested any. But usually, the way that the partnership stuff works, unless it's changed, like, you know, I really haven't been doing much with it recently. The only time I ever really like request anything is if they're removing certain premiums from the store, so therefore I can show it to you guys if you ask. But like, it is just on kind of like a request basis. So like you can request whatever and then they say yes or no, right? Like that's the whole point. And that's how it's all set up. Some people will probably get more than others just because of how much content they produce, but at the same time, it's just how it goes. I would be very surprised if you couldn't get all Battle Pass stuff, but also at the same time, you can request GE, so people could just GE it out. But I suppose if a Battle Pass is over, you can't really do that, can you? Sweet dreams, Anthony. Have a nice rest, man. Lovely to see you. Look after yourself. Yeah, technically you can request anything. I don't think I've ever... Well, no, there's one thing that was rejected, and that was like the old vehicles that were removed. Because I wanted to do a video basically going through a bunch of vehicles that had been removed from the game over the years. And I was told that they couldn't do it because of the way that they were coded or something. There was like a new updated way of the way that they were coded in the game. And then what ended up happening was that the way it happened was they hadn't updated it to the new model, so you couldn't actually like find them or go for them, which seems kind of shit, but you know, it is how it is. They are pretty old vehicles. Hey W Israel, nice to see you. Name a plane for an edit? Sure. The Nesha. If we're going Israel. Oh, what the? That was weird. I heard you can't request the i7 even for a test drive? Really? That would be a surprise. I got a Lag 3.4 for a test drive. Because I wanna do a video on what I would class as the first ever subtree, and that was obviously the Italian stuff in the German tech tree, right? With all the Sparvieros. Maybe I will. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe that's something I'll have a look at. So we have Islam Ziad. Hey Tech, hello. I moved to PC from PlayStation. It's a great experience, but because it's a PSN clone account, I can't buy anything from the market, and I have to buy everything from the PS Store. Is there a solution, or do I have to sell the account? Or is there a hope to get the account to go back as a normal PC account? Thanks for everything you do for the community. I don't know. Is the way to put it. I'm not sure how that system works. The person to talk to for that is Grom Voini on the forums. Grom is the guy who's part of the store team, and he generally answers questions for that stuff. So I'd probably send him a message on the forums to try and sort it out. The other thing is you can't sell your account. So it's against Gaijin terms of service to sell accounts, which is why you should never do it. There are places out there that do sell accounts, and it's really sad to see because usually it's just a bunch of people who've got their accounts nicked because of the fact that, you know, they've ended up losing their stuff, and it's sad, like, when it happens. So I wouldn't do that, because first of all, it's against the terms of service, and then second of all, it's just sad. I mean, I don't know. I've seen too many people over the years get their accounts nicked and sold off, and they lose it because somebody cheats on the account, and it's just it always makes me sad, always, every time. And there's never anything that can be done about it, unfortunately. Very, very unfortunate. But oh well. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Hopefully you don't feel like doing that. But yeah, I'll check with Gromvoini. Sneaky says you can't go back from PC back to whatever console you came from. Yeah, two-factor authentication. That's the solution to this stuff. The Gaijin Pass on the mobile has a two-factor authentication built into it. They've actually made it easier to use too, so instead of it just using a random number generator, You can also just click to allow if you want something to go in. So I would highly recommend that if you haven't got it already. Then we have Oberzoe. I don't know why you're against historical BRs. After searching for a few examples, I can see the appeal of everyone advocating for them. Examples: PVKV2 BR 40 to 73. Built after World War II and would be considered equal to the Cent 3 STRV 81. Yeah, crazy, right? KV1 BR 37 to 10. Fighting early Panzer 3s and 4s. Well, technically Panzer 2s, right? B-17 Flying Fortress 1936 versus HE-112. Yep, classic. The B-17 Reconnaissance variant. I love that one. What do you think the main prize nation will be in the next Battle Pass? Probably a major nation this time, so my guess would be Germany. The F-14 Tomcat versus the MiG-21 MF. Yeah, that, you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? Looking at when some of these modernized Soviet aircraft were built, like, go and have a look at when the MiG-23 MLD was built. Or go and have a look at the Su-27 SM, the most recent vehicle that's in, right? It's so crazy to think about, like, how far, not really behind, well, yes, behind, but also, but also at the same time, like, how long it took certain modifications to come out. Then we have the Panzer IV-J 37 to 67, classic. Hetzer BR 43 to 67. Yeah, it's just nuts, right? I mean, yeah, the Swedish stuff is always the funnest for me. Go through the Swedish things is hilarious. But luckily, as we've said, that type of argument has kind of disappeared. Or at least mostly disappeared. So that's the main thing. Just having a laugh here. If they really want to change, no one stops them from up-tiering their little reserve to fight KV-1s or T-34s. Yeah, that's true. They could do it themselves, you know. Oh, don't forget the spawn point free CAS spawn option. Match start simulate late war allied CAS capabilities, yeah. That would be the killer. People never bring up like planes when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah. Or when they do, they always talk about like fuel usage and things like that, which is always a really weird thing to go through. But yeah, it's we could just like we could bash the door down all day about how silly it is. But yeah, it's just how it goes, you know. It's just how it is. So we have ribs. Why not just separate a separate game mode for historic matchmaking? Genuine question. I don't care either way. So if you have imagine you have a finite thing, right? So let's say you have 10,000 of that thing. Let's call those things people. So you have 10,000 people. And then you have 2 game modes, right? Now, the idea would be those game modes would actually be split 50-50, right? No. What actually happens is it's probably more like 60-40 or maybe even 80-20, okay? So one game mode gets favored over another. Therefore, a lot of the talk about that game mode is actually, or talk about the game in general, is more focused around that game mode. So when people come into the game, they're talking about that 80% a lot of the time. So what that 80% becomes is actually 85%, and then 85 to 15, 90 to 10, so on and so forth. Now imagine if you added 3 game modes, and you know for a fact that extra game mode you're adding is only going to appeal to a minority of the player base. So you aren't actually really splitting a lot of people off that 85%. What you're going to actually end up doing is splitting off people from that 15% who want to try something new because they're not playing the major game mode. So you end up with a situation where you have something which has 85%, then another thing that has like 10%, another thing that has 5%. And maybe that changes. So maybe one thing's 70% and then the other 2 are 15%. But if we have a look at history and also if we have a look at War Thunder, that hasn't happened. So yeah, that's basically the problem. If everything was equal, so it was 33% across the board, it would be fine, right? 33.3, right? But it isn't. And it never is. That's why a lot of games have actually gone to reducing the amount of game modes that exist, because of the fact they're trying to focus their player base around specific game modes, because those are the ones that in the past people have enjoyed the most. So a lot of innovation in game modes have also kind of disappeared from stuff like FPSs and also similar games to War Thunder because of this idea, right? Think about how many battle royales came out, which were all basically the same thing. And average guy, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, CS2. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully everything's all right. So yeah, that's the basic problem, right? You've got to understand that when we're talking about game stuff, nothing is equal in that way. Not the same amount of people don't play America as they play Germany, as they play USSR, as they play everybody else. So if you take that idea, right, where we know the majority of the players, play very specific nations, if you take that idea and then apply it to game modes, it's exactly the same problem. So by expanding the game modes, you technically fix this by offering the option, but at the same time, you also have a problem where you're going to split another part of the player base off. And what this can lead to is long queue times. It can lead to people leaving the game because they don't find games, and it can lead to negativity. And if you don't believe me, you can just look at Naval, where one of the major narratives that people who don't play Naval constantly talk about is how nobody plays Naval. Even though people do play Naval quite a lot, you just don't hear about them because they're playing Naval and they don't get involved in a lot of, chats about Naval. So what ends up happening is the narrative becomes, oh, nobody plays it, so why should I play it? So therefore, the new players who are coming into it, right, they get discouraged because everybody else is saying that they don't play it. So they're longer queue times. People have finite time. People want to have fun. So that's just it, right? That's just how the whole thing works, and that's the problem with it, right? So you could technically offer all the different game modes. You could offer them all at once. Let's just say money isn't a thing. Let's just say all of those factors aren't a problem. You could do it all, and you could work out what people want to play and what people don't. But you also could lose a ton of people at the same time, right? Because there's also the Naval is a great way of explaining all of these things, because Naval as a game mode works by itself. It's never going to appeal to the largest amount of people, but it will work, right? And it gives people something that they can't find in other places. What it also gives is the opposite reaction, which is much more important. So as I said, you have the minority of people enjoying something, then you have the majority of people who go, who cares, or why? There is so many times over the years where I've heard this exact phrase. Why are they bothering developing stuff for Naval? It is a dead game mode. Right? I've heard that hundreds, maybe thousands of times, right? And that is from people who are ignorant to the people who play Naval. And also at the same time, it is because it's the standard narrative that people push. So imagine that, right? Imagine that idea, but with whatever game mode that you bring up and that you bring up or that they build. And then times that by a bunch because of the fact that they're going to have to do it multiple times to benefit everybody. And that's the problem you have right there, right? So even when it begins, even when it starts as an entity in the game, it has such a hill that it has to go over, because you have to defeat the people who are used to playing other stuff. You have to then defeat the people who are going to badmouth it because it's different. And then on top of that, you have to somehow get a player base in there that is okay with being ridiculed and also doing something different from the norm, which doesn't take away from the standard game mode either. And that is very tricky, which is why you don't see many games do it, right? You'll also start getting meta vehicles to play in the new historical game modes, so very long queue times. Yeah, there'll be people, if we want to have a look at the example for that, the one to look at there is Simulator, right? Where in Simulator, there's a bunch of people who straight up just go for the meta vehicles and nothing else. And that causes problems because Therefore, you don't get games and you have to wait for a long time. It sucks. To be fair, it took me 2 minutes to find a 4.3 RB Naval game today. Not a great look. No, it isn't. It's an awful look. You know, and once again, a lot of people look at that and they won't want to play. And that's why, you know, BR decompression is important, and that's why fleshing out these tech trees is important. And also, having a bit of positive press around things is super important too. I'm good. Have you seen the new AJ37 and AGS37 countermeasure pods? Yeah, they have like a ton of chaff in them, right? Yeah. Same with the tornado ones, the bods, I think they're called. It's pretty fun. Then we have pig stick. Let's see. I think I heard the worst take ever made. I haven't played War Thunder in a bit, but I've been watching videos, and I saw this video made by someone who I think is famous for making terrible takes. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what, Matorg? No, I don't think he's famous for terrible takes. It's more just, I mean, he's very honest about this. He produces clickbait content in order to get money. He's even talked about it many times. So yeah, I don't know if it's I doubt he has terrible takes. He probably says some very basic things. But it's just, yeah, once he started talking about that fact, I just, whenever I see somebody say that, it kind of just puts me off the whole content point, because at that point it's not a interest or a hobby developing thing, it's a money thing, and that's just boring. Let's see. The video says that the community and him is divided by the fact the bison went to the wrong tech tree, and saying that it should have gone to the Russians. I'm going to let you facepalm for a bit. That's not the worst take I've ever heard. But at the same time, what would be the point in the bison going to the Soviet tech tree? You already have the MiG-23, so why would people buy the bison? The other thing is they were looking for a vehicle to add to the higher echelons of Britain, and if people haven't noticed, India has been slowly but surely creeping into the British tech tree, just like other nations have too. And the idea is to get more people interested in it. India is a huge player base, man. And India is one of those nations that is slowly developing. Right now, a lot of India is mobile games. But when you have a population of 1 billion people, which is slowly but surely getting to a point of kind of, I suppose your class as maturity, or getting to a point where, you know, people have a bit more expendable income so they can try a bunch of different stuff, then, you know, these things start taking off. The problem with adding another Russian premium to already a pretty, you know, extravagant Russian area is you don't really solve anything. You don't really give much to the Russian tech tree. Instead, you just take away from the British one. Yeah, PUBG has a massive Indian audience. Yeah, and also Chinese audience. But yeah, like India, I know people make the jokes about the whole like India superpower 2022 thing. But at the end of the day, there's 1 billion people there. Like that's, America has what, like 300 million, 400 million. Russia has 350 million, I think. You know, Mexico has like 100 million. Brazil has like 300 million. But like that's dwarfed by India and China. So just yeah, sorry, 150 million, my bad. So if you actually have a look at just like the general population that's there, and also the fact of how much they are represented in War Thunder, India is represented very, very small compared to the nations. And to me, since India is one of those growth areas, if I'm a person who's, you know, making decisions on where things should add, and I see that, first of all, Britain has a hole in its tech tree, and there isn't really a vehicle that you can add there which would make sense, apart from another premium Harrier, which I can honestly say people would not want, since there's already 1 million Harriers in the tree. It was the perfect addition to that area, right? Same with stuff like the Bishma. Do you need another T90? in the Soviet tree? Does that work? You already have a Squadron T-80, so what's the point in another T-90? No one's gonna play it, right? Same with stuff like the Vigilante and other vehicles. So yeah, it's just one of those which, like, it can be argued either way, but the benefit, once again, it's like the historical argument thing. If the only reason why you think something should be in a tech tree is because of some nationalistic reason, it's not going to work. Because we're past that. We've been past that for a long time in War Thunder. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, we have a bunch of fake vehicles in the game. We have a bunch of sub-tech trees all over the place. We have a lot of cross-pollination in terms of military equipment that has been made over the last few, like the last, I don't even know how long, like what, 20 years? 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years? So this idea of this thing should go here because it is based off of, you know, this thing that was domestically from here, it just doesn't work. And it hasn't for a long time in War Thunder. It hasn't for at least 5 years. So yeah. India's top 3 video games are Candy Crush, PUBG Mobile, and COD Mobile. Yeah, because it's a mobile market, which is why it's very important for War Thunder to get into like the mobile market, because a lot of these like smaller countries, in terms of gaming, not by population, are more based around mobiles because they're more accessible. If you actually have a look at those games as well, they're huge in other markets like the Philippines, for example, and also, once again, China, and also just many Western countries as well, because of the fact that a lot of them, mobiles are more accessible than high-end PCs or consoles. Which console had access to the player marketplace, or maybe its own player marketplace, if there's an issue with the current one that prevents it from being on it? Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, I think the issue is the third-party nature of it, which is obviously something that's a bit rough and never going to be too fun. Nice to see you, Abby. Hopefully you're doing good. Just found a US gunboat that they could add, the USS Erie, built in 1936, destroyed in 42 by a torpedo. Oh, cool. I don't mind Gaijin putting vehicles in the non-country tech trees like the Swiss Hunter in Germany, the UK. If only they were down consistent with their rules. It annoys me to no end. Yeah, yeah. The rules thing is the issue, right? Because as we've talked about, the only thing that really matters is balance for them. So, and I know we can disagree on whether they actually, you know, balance things properly or not, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to give every tech tree access to the same mechanics, access to different playstyles, which are similar. So whichever tech tree you play, there's some similarity and also some differences. This is like the Leopards, you know, stuff like the Centurions, for example, even the M60s. The idea is to create like a common ground so people feel a bit comfortable with it, and also at the same time to fill out the tech trees. But yeah, the actual rules they use are all over the place, and that's fine, because there's only one rule that matters, and that rule is balance. Everything else is to justify that right there, that specific rule, and I just wish they were honest about it, you know? The problem is, if they are honest about it, you end up having to deal with crazy people who disagree. So usually it's better just to not say things. But yeah, sometimes they come out with incredibly outlandish statements about why certain things are being added to specific areas, and I just wish they would just... Right, so how do I put this? If a decision is made, okay, whatever decision in life you make, buying a house, buying a car, going to university, picking a job, signing up for certain specific programs, you know, going to a specific bar, playing a specific game. All of these decisions require reasons why they happen, right? So you don't just do, unless you're like forced into situations, which like a lot of the time you're not forced into doing things, especially as an adult, right? You can just pick kind of what you want to do. So what you end up having is a bunch of things that happen because of major reasons and minor reasons. So, for example, let's say I want to go to the club. Let's say I'm 19. I want to go dance. I want to go party. I want to get laid. So one of the major reasons of going out is to be able to, get out, energy, have a great time, have a wonderful time. A minor reason might be to blow off steam because I don't know, I've had a bad week. Another major reason why picking a specific place to go is maybe it's cheaper than the other one. Another major reason might be because my mates are going to that place too. Maybe another one is because a minor reason might be because it's near a kebab shop, which is really nice for afterwards, right? So you have all of these like little things that go through your head when you make these decisions. And Gaijin does the same thing with vehicles in their game. They probably have a bunch more, but the issue I have is when they put out those statements, which are like, this is the reason why we put this vehicle into this tech tree. And they only give like half the reasons. And they're always the tiny ones. They're never the actual proper reasons why they're doing it. And it annoys me to no end. Because I think that part of it, over the last few years, they've become so much more open, so much more honest about what decisions they're making and why they're deciding to do them. And it's fantastic. But there are still those little nuggets where they turn around and they just give the most... the reason which makes the least sense in terms of all of the reasons they're picking. Yeah, the Tor M1. Yeah, exactly. That one right there. So why have you added it to the Chinese tech tree instead of the Russian one? Their first thought was, don't worry, we're adding something similar to the Russian tree. No. Just say why you're adding it. The Chinese tree doesn't have a high tier AA. They're struggling. They need a high tier AA. Just say that. Nope. It's the reason we're gonna do the opposite. Okay. But you could just say the real reason. It's okay. No one's gonna go after you. There may be some like crazy Russian nationalists, but they'll once again be patient for a few months and they'll be fine. But then everybody else just looks at it and goes, "Why have you done that? That doesn't really make a lot of sense." So yeah, it's just one of those things. Right, so that's the end of the questions, by the way. Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts for this week? Obviously, in general, feeling pretty good in terms of playing. I haven't really played a ton of War Thunder this week compared to usual. Still played a decent chunk, but you know how it is. Like very different compared to previous ones. Been playing a lot of the Abillions and also a lot of other stuff, but it's been nice. I think it's good to try and like do different things and go around for it. You're glad you're not the only one thinking this? Well, I would hope that idea is pretty obvious. Obviously, depending on who you're talking to, it might not be, but to me, it seems very obvious what's going on with it. Maybe it might be different. Who knows? It's just kind of what goes around. So, I think we'll end the stuff here. Oh, how would you make the Germany not suffer because Germany suffers? Legit, though, can you think of any vehicles for 7.0 that could fill the gap? Unless you bring in the Swiss vehicles, not really. Or just bring back, the Tiger 2 and the Panther 2. And the Coelian. That's the only real way. Yeah, you're right that between 7.0 and 8.0, Germany has this huge gap right now, and it's very weak. Which means that you get some really weird matchmaking. But I would, yeah, the only thing you could do is add more American vehicles or something else, which would be similar. Hopefully they can figure something out. There's a few tech trees with like holes like that right now, which is just kind of annoying. But I'm sure they'll figure something that's moving about. Hopefully they can set something up. There we go. See what's going on. Right, we'll end it here. We'll continue to play some War Thunder, have a bit of fun. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. See you next week.